Most people believe motivation is something you either have or you don't. They wake up some days feeling energized, focused, and ready to take action. Other days, even the simplest tasks feel heavy and difficult. Because of this inconsistency, many assume motivation is unreliable, something that comes and goes without warning. So they try to fix it with willpower. They tell themselves to push harder, be more disciplined, or stop being lazy. But here's the truth most people miss. Motivation is not about willpower. It's about how your brain evaluates effort, reward, and meaning. Your brain is constantly calculating whether something is worth doing. It weighs the effort required against the expected reward. If the reward feels distant, unclear, or unimportant, your brain creates resistance. That resistance feels like laziness. But it's not laziness. It's your brain trying to conserve energy. From a psychological perspective, your brain is designed to avoid unnecessary effort and seek efficiency. This was useful for survival, but in modern life, it often works against you. When you understand this, something shifts. You stop blaming yourself. And you start asking a better question. What is my brain responding to right now? Because once you understand what drives motivation, you stop waiting for it to appear. And you begin learning how to create it. At the center of motivation lies a powerful chemical system in your brain. This system is driven by dopamine. Many people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical, but that's not entirely accurate. Dopamine is more closely tied to anticipation than reward itself. It is released when your brain expects something valuable. This expectation is what drives you to act. When you scroll through social media, check notifications, or watch short videos, your brain receives quick bursts of dopamine. These small, frequent rewards train your brain to seek instant gratification. Over time, this changes your motivation patterns. Tasks that offer delayed rewards, like studying, working, or building a long-term goal, begin to feel less appealing. Not because they aren't valuable, but because your brain has learned to prefer immediate stimulation. This creates a dangerous imbalance. Your brain becomes highly motivated for easy, low-effort rewards and less motivated for meaningful, high-effort goals. Understanding this changes how you approach motivation. It's not about forcing yourself to work harder. It's about managing the reward system. When you reduce constant exposure to instant rewards and begin associating effort with positive outcomes, your brain slowly recalibrates. It begins to find satisfaction in progress. And once your brain starts to expect reward from meaningful effort, motivation becomes easier to access. Every action you take is influenced by two powerful forces: the desire to gain pleasure and the desire to avoid pain. These forces operate constantly in the background of your mind, shaping your decisions more than you might realize. When a task feels rewarding, enjoyable, or meaningful, your brain associates it with pleasure. This increases your willingness to take action. But when a task feels stressful, uncertain, or uncomfortable, your brain associates it with pain. And it tries to avoid it. This is why you might delay starting a project, avoid difficult conversations, or procrastinate on important goals. It's not because you don't care. It's because your brain is trying to protect you from discomfort. The problem is that short-term avoidance often leads to long-term frustration. The task doesn't disappear. It becomes heavier over time. Understanding this dynamic gives you control. If you want to increase motivation, you can shift how your brain perceives pain and pleasure. You can make positive actions feel more rewarding by focusing on progress, growth, and long-term benefits. And you can reduce the perceived pain of tasks by breaking them into smaller, manageable steps. When the brain sees a task as less threatening and more rewarding, resistance decreases. Motivation increases. Because at its core, motivation is not random. It is your brain responding to what it believes will bring pleasure. And what it wants to avoid. Have you ever called yourself lazy? Maybe you had something important to do, but instead, you kept delaying it. You told yourself you would start later, but later never came. It feels like a lack of discipline. But in most cases, it's not laziness. It's energy. Your brain is an energy management system. Every decision you make requires mental effort, and your brain is constantly trying to conserve that energy. When your energy is low, whether from lack of sleep, stress, poor nutrition, or mental overload, your brain becomes more resistant to effort. Even simple tasks begin to feel difficult. This is why you can feel highly motivated one day and completely drained the next. It's not because your goals changed. It's because your energy did. There is also another layer to this. When a task feels too big, unclear, or overwhelming, your brain treats it as a high-cost activity. The higher the perceived cost, the stronger the resistance. So instead of starting, you delay. Not because you don't want to succeed, but because your brain is trying to protect you from exhaustion. Understanding this changes everything. Instead of judging yourself, you begin to manage your energy. You simplify tasks. You rest when needed. You remove unnecessary friction. Because motivation doesn't come from forcing yourself endlessly. It comes from creating conditions where your brain feels capable of taking action. Motivation becomes powerful when something feels meaningful. You can force yourself to do something for a short period of time. But long-term motivation is driven by purpose. When your brain connects a task to something important, growth, identity, impact, or future success, it becomes easier to stay consistent. Without meaning, even simple tasks feel empty. With meaning, even difficult tasks feel worthwhile. This is why two people can approach the same situation differently. One sees effort. The other sees purpose. The first struggles to stay motivated. The second continues despite challenges. Meaning gives your brain a reason to push through discomfort. It answers the question, why does this matter? When that answer is clear, your brain becomes more willing to invest energy. But when that answer is missing, motivation fades quickly. Many people set goals without connecting them to deeper reasons. They focus on outcomes but ignore purpose. As a result, their motivation doesn't last. To change this, you need to connect your actions to something bigger than the task itself. Not just what you are doing, but who you are becoming. When your brain sees your actions as part of a meaningful journey, it stops viewing effort as a burden. It starts seeing it as progress. And that shift can transform how you approach everything. One of the biggest battles in motivation happens between two types of rewards. Instant rewards and delayed rewards. Instant rewards are easy, fast, and immediately satisfying. Scrolling your phone, watching videos, eating snacks, these require little effort but give quick pleasure. Delayed rewards are different. They require effort, patience, and consistency. But their benefits come later. The problem is that your brain naturally prefers instant rewards. From an evolutionary perspective, immediate gratification helps humans survive. But in today's world, this preference can work against you. Because the most valuable goals, success, mastery, growth, are all delayed. When your brain is constantly exposed to instant rewards, it becomes less sensitive to delayed ones. This makes long-term goals feel less exciting. And short-term distractions feel more appealing. This is why it's so easy to choose comfort now over progress later. But this pattern can be changed. When you begin to limit constant instant gratification and create small rewards around productive behavior, your brain starts to adapt. It begins to associate effort with satisfaction. Over time, delayed rewards become more attractive. Motivation improves. Because your brain is no longer stuck chasing quick pleasure. It starts investing in meaningful progress. Most people believe they need motivation to take action. But in reality, motivation often comes after action. This creates what psychologists call a motivation loop. It starts with a small step. That step leads to progress. Progress creates a sense of achievement. That feeling reinforces the behavior. And the cycle continues. The more you act, the more motivated you become. But when you wait for motivation before acting, the loop never begins. You stay stuck in hesitation. This is why starting is the hardest part. Not because the task is impossible, but because your brain has not yet experienced the reward of progress. Once you begin, something changes. Even small progress creates momentum. And momentum makes the next step easier. This is why successful people focus less on feeling motivated and more on taking action. They understand that motivation is built, not found. Each small action sends a signal to the brain. This is worth doing. And as that signal repeats, motivation strengthens. Over time, action becomes more natural. And what once required effort begins to feel easier. The key is not to wait. It is to begin. Many people believe success depends entirely on discipline. They think they need stronger willpower to stay consistent. But psychology suggests something different. Environment often matters more than discipline. Your surroundings shape your behavior in subtle but powerful ways. If distractions are always within reach, your brain will naturally gravitate toward them. If your environment supports focus and clarity, taking action becomes easier. This is why small changes can make a big difference. Removing distractions. Organizing your space. Creating a routine. These changes reduce the effort required to act. And when effort decreases, motivation increases. Discipline still matters. But relying on discipline alone is exhausting. Designing your environment to support your goals is more sustainable. Because it works with your brain. Not against it. At the deepest level, motivation is connected to identity. It's not just about what you do. It's about who you believe you are. If you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, avoids challenges, or lacks discipline, your actions will reflect that belief. But identity can change. Each action you take sends a message to your brain. When you act despite resistance, you begin to reshape how you see yourself. You become someone who takes action. Someone who follows through. Someone who grows. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It happens through repetition. Through consistent behavior. Through choosing action, even when it feels uncomfortable. Over time, your identity evolves. And once your identity aligns with action, motivation becomes less of a struggle. Because you are no longer trying to force yourself to act. You are simply being who you have become. Motivation is not something you wait for. It is something you understand. And once you understand it, you can begin to control it. Right now, your brain is constantly making decisions behind the scenes. It is choosing what feels worth your energy. What feels too difficult. And what feels easier to avoid. And most of the time, you are not aware of these decisions. You just feel the result. You feel stuck. You feel distracted. You feel unmotivated. But now you know the truth. You are not lazy. Your brain is simply responding to how it has been trained. And that means you can retrain it. So if you truly want to take control of your motivation, start with these steps. First, reduce instant distractions. Limit the things that give you quick, easy dopamine, constant scrolling, notifications, and endless content. These train your brain to avoid effort. Second, start before you feel ready. Don't wait for motivation. Take one small action. Even the smallest step can activate the motivation loop. Third, make tasks easier to start. Break them down. Remove pressure. Focus on progress, not perfection. Fourth, connect your actions to meaning. Ask yourself, why does this matter? When your brain sees purpose, it becomes easier to act. Fifth, design your environment for success. Remove distractions. Create a space that makes focus natural. And finally, build the identity of someone who takes action. Because the more you act, the more your brain begins to believe. This is who I am. Remember this. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You rise to the level of your systems, your environment, and your identity. If this video helped you understand what truly drives behavior, subscribe to Growth Mindset Lab for more deep psychological insights that help you become better every day. And always remember, you don't need more motivation. You need a better system. And now, you know how to build one.